She doesn't want to be seen with a loser. 8 words. That's all it took. One royal commentator, one quote, and suddenly the entire internet was asking the same question. Because those 8 words weren't about a stranger. They were about Meghan Markle. And the so-called loser? Her own husband. Now, here's the thing about quotes like this. On their own, they're just noise, gossip, another headline in an ocean of headlines. But this one landed at a very specific moment. And when you line up everything that happened in the days around it, day by day, event by event, a pattern starts to form. A pattern that's honestly hard to unsee. So that's exactly what we're going to do today. No shouting, no wild theories, just the timeline, the court ruling, the trip to Britain, the empty seat next to Harry, and the silence that got louder with every single day. You watch the facts, and you decide what they mean. Because by the end of this video, that one quote is going to sound very, very different. Let's start where it all began, the courtroom. For years, Prince Harry has been fighting the British tabloids. It was personal for him, maybe the most personal battle of his life. He talked about it in interviews, he wrote about it in his book. He framed it as a mission, protecting his family the way no one protected his mother. And to be fair, he had some wins along the way. But this summer, the fight against the publisher of the Daily Mail took a very different turn. The case didn't go his way. And in the world of British courts, losing doesn't just mean walking away disappointed. It means paying. Legal costs in cases like this run into the millions. Reports described it as a painful financial blow, one of the most expensive setbacks Harry has faced since leading royal life. Think about that for a second. This is a man who gave up his royal role, his security funding, his entire support system, partly so he could fight battles like this one on his own terms. And now the battle he chose had turned around and hit him where it hurts. But here's what matters for our timeline. It's not just that Harry lost, it's when he lost. Because this ruling didn't land in some quiet news week, it landed right before something else. Something that was already going to be difficult. A trip back home. Mark that as point 1 on our timeline. Now let's go to point 2, London. In July, Harry traveled to Britain. On paper, it looked like a normal visit. Engagements, appearances, the usual. But the press coverage told a completely different story. Multiple outlets described this trip using words you never want attached to a royal visit. Awkward, uncomfortable, even humiliating. One major report literally ran with the framing of Harry's nightmare UK visit. Why nightmare? Picture the situation. He arrives in his home country days after a very public court defeat. The tabloids he's been fighting are covering his every move, and now they have fresh ammunition. The family he's been estranged from is right there, across town, and every camera is watching for a glance, a handshake, any sign of where things stand. Every step he takes is analyzed. Every step he doesn't take is analyzed even harder. This was Harry at possibly his lowest public moment in years. Financially wounded, publicly embarrassed, walking through a country that was once his home, surrounded by people writing down everything he did wrong. And it's exactly here, at this lowest point, that our timeline raises its first real question. A simple one. If your husband was going through the most difficult week of his year, where would you be? Because the answer, in this case, was not London. If you're already sensing where this is going, take 1 second and hit that like button. It genuinely helps this video reach more people who follow this story. Now, point 3, the empty space next to Harry. This is the part that turns a rough week into a mystery. Because Meghan's absence wasn't a rumor. It wasn't paparazzi speculation or an anonymous source whispering to a tabloid. It was reported openly, plainly, ahead of time. Meghan would not be attending public events with Harry during the UK visit. Not one appearance. Not one photo together on British soil. Nothing. Now, to be completely fair, there can be 100 innocent reasons for that. The children are in California. She has her own projects, her own schedule, her own life. And Britain, let's be honest, has never exactly rolled out the red carpet for her. Staying home could simply be self-preservation. But here's why the timing makes it so uncomfortable. Couples in the public eye know one thing better than anyone. presence is a message. Standing next to someone is a statement. Royals have done it for generations, through scandals, through losses, through everything. You show up, you stand there, and the picture says what words can't. Which means the opposite is also true. Not standing there is a statement too. And during the hardest week of Harry's year, day after day, event after event, the cameras kept finding the same thing. Harry, alone. No wife at his side. No supportive appearance back in the States, time to back him up. Just a man walking through his nightmare, weak by himself. While 5,000 miles away, silence. And it's precisely into that silence that someone dropped a match. Because while Harry was navigating London alone, reports surfaced about what was happening behind the scenes before this trip. About a phone call Harry wanted Meghan to make. A call to one person in particular, Kate. And what reportedly happened with that request might be the most telling part of this entire story. So let's talk about that phone call. Point 4 on our timeline. According to reports that surfaced around the visit, Harry had been encouraging Meghan to reach out to Princess Kate. Think about what that actually means for a moment. Of all the bridges that burned between the Sussexes and the royal family, the one between Meghan and Kate might be the most damaged. The rumors, the interviews, the book, the documentaries. Years of accumulated hurt on both sides. And yet Harry, right before walking into the most difficult trip of his year, reportedly wanted exactly that bridge rebuilt. He wasn't asking his wife to fly to London. He wasn't asking her to face the British press. He was, according to these reports, asking for something much smaller. A gesture, a message, an opening. Now here's the question our timeline forces us to ask. Did that outreach ever happen? Because if it did, nobody saw any sign of it. No reports of contact, no softening in the coverage, no hint from either camp that a single word passed between the two women. Whatever Harry was hoping for, publicly at least, the answer looked like silence. And that changes the picture, doesn't it? Because now, the distance isn't just physical. It's not just Meghan staying in California while Harry walks through London. It's a reported request from her own husband at his most vulnerable moment that seemingly went nowhere. He wanted reconciliation. He was, by multiple accounts, exploring what a return to Britain could even look like. Some reports went as far as calling it a possible reversal of the whole Megxit project. And in every version of that story, there's a role written for Meghan. A role she, so far, has not stepped into. One person reaching back toward the family. One person staying exactly where she is. That's the timeline. And now, finally, we're ready to go back to where we started. The quote, "She doesn't want to be seen with a loser." When you heard that at the beginning of this video, it probably sounded like tabloid venom. Cruel, catchy, designed for clicks. But now you have the full timeline. The court defeat, the financial hit, the nightmare visit, the empty seat, the silence around Kate. Listen to the quote again with all of that in your head, and pay attention to the exact wording, because the royal commentator who said it chose those words very carefully. Notice what the quote is not. It's not, "she left him." It's not, "the marriage is over." It's not even, "she doesn't support him." It's, "she doesn't want to be seen with a loser." Seen. That's the key word in the whole sentence. It's not about feelings, it's about optics, about image, about a brand. And that's what makes this interpretation so cold. And honestly, so much more unsettling than any divorce rumor. Because divorce rumors come and go, this couple has survived dozens of them. But this is different. This is the suggestion that somewhere in that California house, a calculation happened. That someone looked at Harry's losing streak, at the court costs, at the humiliating headlines, and made a quiet, strategic decision. Distance the brand. Protect the image. Wait it out. Is that true? We can't know. This is one expert's read, one interpretation of a very strange week. Maybe it's completely wrong. Maybe Meghan was being protective of her children, or protecting her own mental health from a country that has been brutal to her. That version exists too, and it deserves to be said out loud. But here's what makes this story refuse to die. On the timeline, both versions look identical. A wife avoiding a toxic media circus, and a wife distancing herself from a sinking reputation. They behave exactly the same way. Same absence, same silence, Same empty space in every photo. The only difference is what's happening inside, and that's the one thing no camera can capture. So we're left with two versions of the same week. Version 1. This was temporary, a bad stretch, a tactical retreat, and the next time we see them together, they'll be holding hands like nothing happened. Version 2. This was the first visible crack. The moment one half of the couple quietly began separating her story from his. Not with lawyers, not with statements, just with distance. Which version do you believe? Drop a 1 or a 2 in the comments. I read them, and last time, the split was closer than you'd think. And if you want to be here when the next piece of this timeline lands, and it will land, subscribe and turn on notifications, because this story is very clearly not finished. One quote, 8 words, and a silence that, so far, nobody has bothered to break. Maybe that silence is the answer.